Power is something other people have, not you, right? Right? No, not right. You have far more power than you probably acknowledge. And we're going to be exploring that in this episode. We'll talk about the ways that intra and interpersonal power dynamics actually affect the big picture power dynamics we all seem to assume are just baked into our world. I'll tell the story of the first five-figure gift I raised as a professional fundraiser, one that started with a meeting that was full of potentially dicey and difficult power dynamics. We'll end with some inspiration for you to take with you, and I hope that inspiration and all of what we talk about here today are things that really stick with you. My guess is that these are the sorts of things that will find their way into your subconscious and regularly arise in your everyday moments as you continue to mull over your relationship with power. Be sure to call or text into the dedicated line for the podcast too, with questions about or your own experiences with this topic. That'll make this whole conversation even richer. Thank you for being here. I'm so grateful to have you in this community. Welcome to the For the Love of Humanity podcast, a place for those who'd like to see philanthropy be less of the industry it has become and return to its roots, love of humanity. This place is beautiful and hopeful, and it's nothing without you. Community is the way. Community has always been the way, and philanthropy has lost its way as it's developed over the years. We are re-centering community at For the Love of Humanity, and community is what we seek in everything we do. Friends, to love and care for our fellow human beings is one of the most human things we can do. Let's get back to the roots of what it means to be human. Let's return to true philanthropy together. When you think of power, what do you see in your mind's eye? An electric plug-in, maybe? Maybe a rippled, muscular arm? How about a CEO? We all will have different images in our minds, but our world around us definitely conditions us to recall certain images. When we think of a powerful person, we're far more likely to see a man in a suit and tie than we are to see a young woman in a hijab, wouldn't you say? The fact that those images are more or less likely to come to our minds has nothing whatsoever to do with the inherent power of those types of people. What it does have to do with is the power these people are usually granted in our society, and the lessons we've all repeatedly learned over the years we've lived in this society, the ways we've been conditioned by it. Power is something we all inherently have, but many, or even most of us, are conditioned to give it away, or others are conditioned to take it away from us. But it doesn't have to be that way. We can own our own power in a way that no one can take it away from us. Let's delve into power dynamics in human relationships a little bit, shall we? Say you're meeting somebody for coffee at a neighborhood cafe. How much do you hustle to get there on time, or even early? That depends on who you're meeting, probably, right? Say you're meeting a close friend. You're likely fairly relaxed and not too worried about what time you actually arrive. Say you're meeting someone who needs something from you. you're doing them a favor by meeting with them and spending the time with them. You're likely to be even more relaxed because what would it matter if they had to wait a bit? You're already going out of your way to be there for them at all, right? Now, say you have requested the meeting of someone else and you are the one who needs something. Say you're meeting a wealthy person who you'd like to ask to support the organization you work for. If you were running late in this scenario, how stressed would you be? I'm guessing pretty stressed, yes? These different scenarios demonstrate interpersonal power dynamics. Who holds power? Who doesn't? Who has more? Who has less? Who bends over backward for who? Who carries the stress of a situation? Who doesn't carry as much stress, if any? Make sense? Okay, now I'm going to ask you to reflect on some specific scenarios to reflect on what you think is true in each scenario so you can start to understand these dynamics and spot them even more. Don't answer how you think you should answer. Answer with what you think is actually most likely in a typical scenario in our society. Okay, first question. Who is more likely to yield if two people are walking towards each other on the same narrow path where only one can get through at a time? Would it be a tall, muscular man who's dressed well? Or a short, slender man in sweats? Here's question number 2. A person speaking in front of a crowd says something that seems hard to believe. Who is more likely to get the benefit of the doubt if they are that person? The first option is a young Asian woman with a PhD. Second option is a young white male tech founder. Who do you think is more likely to get the benefit of the doubt? Here's question number 3. A pair works together on a project. She is a Black woman. He is a white man. Who do you think is most likely to be stressed about the outcome? The Black woman or the white man? So, what do you think? Can you see the power dynamics at play in these scenarios? On the one hand, I think they seem obvious, but on the other, I think these dynamics have a way of hiding. We often don't see them, but yet we're still affected by them everywhere, all the time. Now let's explore power dynamics and hierarchies a bit. Hierarchies are reinforced by patriarchy. They're reinforced by capitalism. They're reinforced by racism, colorism, classism, sexism. Essentially, they're reinforced by about every widespread, prevailing force in our dominant culture worldwide. We've become so accustomed to living within hierarchies that many of us don't even consciously process them anymore. We just subconsciously know our place, and we stay in it. The reality is that power dynamics within hierarchies are mostly reinforced by the kinds of interpersonal dynamics outlined before. The way we relate to individuals, one by one or small group by small group, reinforces for everyone the power dynamics encompassed in the hierarchy at large. Hierarchies are almost always shaped something like a pyramid. One or a few are at the top, while many are at the bottom. And usually, the ones at the top hold all of the power, while the ones at the bottom hold next to none, right? But here's the thing. Think about that structure of a pyramid. The top of the pyramid would not even be able to exist without the bottom holding it up. The bottom of the pyramid is the foundation. The bottom of the pyramid contains far more weight and strength. The bottom of the pyramid is what makes the entire thing possible. Now imagine that pyramid filled with people. There are far more people at the bottom, yes? Inherently, that means that there is far more power at the bottom. Unless people there are giving it away. What does that even mean? What does it mean to give away our power? So let's get into that a bit. Giving away our power is usually not very conscious. We do it subconsciously when we encounter certain people, like those with more money than us, or more masculine than us, or whiter skin than us, or more famous than us, or in a powerful role or official position. We do it when we feel shame. We do it when we lack confidence. We do it because we've been taught to do so. And here's the thing. Changes within our societal dynamics, the persistent ones like racism, colorism, classism, sexism, ableism, and more, are not ever going to change unless all of us, one by one, decide to stop participating in them, which is to say, stop giving away our inherent power. And I'm not talking about protesting here. I'm not talking about letters to the editor or to politicians. I'm not talking about all of the external ways we usually think true change is going to come about in our world. External change is shallow. External change is fragile if it's not backed by accompanying internal changes within the humans who are involved. True change is internal. It is quiet. It is intra and interpersonal. You got that? Intra, as in inside yourself, within one person, and inter, between two or a few people, personal. Since the intra and interpersonal canvas is the one on which all of our lives are actually lived day to day, right? So, power really shifts when it shifts inside us. We need to stop giving away our power in the quiet moments we spend with ourselves, and we need to stop giving it away in interactions with others. If you'd like to engage in this conversation with the For the Love of Humanity podcast community, you can leave a message by texting or calling 1-612-440-4819. That's 1-612-440-4819. Keep your message as concise as you can, especially if you'd like it shared on the air. And be sure to indicate in your message whether you're cool with us airing it publicly with your first name. Otherwise, we can air it anonymously too. And remember, you can either call and leave a voice message or you can text. Either one works. And let us know your preference about sharing, whether with your name or anonymously. I really hope to engage in conversation with you this way, so please do call or text. That's 1-612-440-4819. Here's a real life story about these dynamics to just illustrate it and help you see it and understand it even more. This is a story from my own life. This is the story of the first 5-figure gift I ever raised as a fundraiser. I was meeting this donor for the first time. He was an older white man, and I knew he was very wealthy. 2 things that would usually make a young, not wealthy woman like me feel lesser than, which would likely make me deferent and or nervous and or off my game. To make matters worse, the power dynamic swayed even further out of my favor when I arrived to the meeting. I had had a morning full of problems and rushing, like so many of us do. And thus, I arrived for our 9 a.m. meeting at probably 9:02 or 9:03 a.m. In other words, not egregiously late, but late. I was hoping he maybe hadn't arrived yet. But as I looked through the cafe for him, I saw him sitting in a very settled way, as though he'd been there a while. He looked at me and waved in a brusque way. Just that image I've described. Can you see it? Power was in his court. I walked up to greet him. As I sat down, he started to lecture me, basically. You know, this longtime business executive who had made millions with stock options at his exponentially growing company said, "You really shouldn't keep a donor waiting." He went on to give me a bit more unsolicited advice while I nodded and listened. I might have felt a bit of shame. That would be normal, I'd think. But if I did, I don't really remember it. Because if it was there, it was gone in a flash. My primary response was to sit in and own my power. He wasn't better than me. He wasn't more powerful than me. He didn't really have anything over me. But he was another human being who I had kept waiting. I felt that. I wished I hadn't done that. I knew I could have done better. But I didn't need to beat myself up over it. So as I spoke, I responded really simply, in a firm and confident voice. "You're right. Thank you for saying that. I apologize. I shouldn't have kept you waiting." And just like that, the moment was over. And we started really connecting, human to human, in a way I don't think we would have ever connected if that hadn't been how our meeting started. We talked for a long time. I got to understand him deeply, quite well. And I knew just the perfect gift to suggest to him. So I teased the idea to him, a real pie in the sky sort of suggestion in that initial conversation. And then I went back to talk to my executive director about it. A few weeks later, we invited him to our org for a tour, and especially to see and explore the potential project. He was in. He had come with his checkbook, and he pulled it out and filled out that 5-figure check right then and there. The joy I felt seeing that significant need met by this man's help, a project that, because I now knew him so well, I knew brought him a lot of joy, was profound. And here's the rub. All of that happened because way back when, in that coffee shop weeks ago, in a potentially fraught interaction between one wealthy older man and one younger, not wealthy woman, I hadn't given away any of my power. I had claimed it. I had sat in it. And powerful things were thus able to happen that ultimately made this world a better place. Now, I don't want you to hear that story and think there's something special about me that I was able to do that. No way. We can all do this. And if we want things to really change for the better in our world, we all need to start doing this. Owning our power does not have to be for the few. Owning our power can and should be for the many. In fact, as we discussed earlier, the more that the many own this power, the more we'll all be living in the truth. And the less we'll all have to think we're held hostage by a few wealthy, selfish men. Because let's be honest, that is who is holding the power cards right now. Or really, who has been for our entire modern era. There are far more of us. And we are all far less selfish. And the more we all really lean into community, to our shared humanity, to our collective liberation, to the fact that we're all in it together, and thus we'll be there for each other, no matter what any of us needs, the more we'll step into our power. Owning our power also doesn't need to be complicated. There are quite simple inspirations to do so everywhere you might look. One of those is from Viktor Frankl, who speaks to us in writing from the aftermath of the Holocaust, where he was profoundly hated, imprisoned, inflicted with unspeakable violence. He could be forgiven for feeling powerless, oppressed as he was. But no. His life experiences taught him this. This is one of his well-known thoughts or quotes. He wrote, "Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom." Again, that's from Viktor Frankl. I'll say it once more. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. So simple, right? But yet often so hard, right? But still simple. So even if it's hard, it's doable. We can all learn to increase that space between a stimulus and our response, to own our power to actively choose our response rather than just have knee-jerk reactions according to the ways our life experiences and traumas have conditioned us. Then there's this poem, which has long been one of my favorites. As a mystic, I adore the Sufis, in particular Rumi, and I've also come to love Hafiz. This one is from Hafiz. Even after all this time, the sun never says to the earth, "You owe me." Look what happens with a love like that. It lights the whole sky. And to repeat that one again, to just let it soak in for all of us. Even after all this time, the sun never says to the earth, "You owe me." Look what happens with a love like that. It lights the whole sky. And to add to that, it not only lights the whole sky, it makes everything here on earth grow. It makes all life here possible, right? Again, this is simple. We're talking about generosity here. Generosity can be hard if we're worried about ourselves, if we feel like there's not enough, and that only we can make sure that we get what we need. But if instead we can relax and create the kinds of community in our lives where we know that many, many people will be there for us and everything we need, that kind of generosity becomes much more possible. Can you imagine giving like this? Like the sun shining? Shining and shining and shining, giving and giving and giving, without ever worrying about what we're getting back. Not martyrdom, generosity in community, a community with mutual generosity, such that everyone gives when they can and can receive when and whatever they need, with mutuality, with love and care, with a sense of our shared humanity. What do you say? How does all of this land for you? Can you see yourself living this way? Can you see yourself owning your power? And can you see how much your life and all of our lives might change for the better when and if you do? Thanks for joining us today. Hopefully you're left with some inspiration, some things to ponder, some topics that will spur further conversation between you and your friends and colleagues. If you'd like to engage in this conversation with the For the Love of Humanity podcast community, you can leave a message by texting or calling 1-612-440-4819. That's 1-612-440-4819. Be sure to indicate whether you're cool with your thoughts being shared on the air. Then, want to help us spread the word? Don't forget to follow and rate and review the pod wherever you get your podcasts. That'll help more people find us and help our community grow. Finally, visit the online community at fortheloveofhumanity.community and be sure to subscribe when you're there. Bye for now, friends.